Yeah, so here's how funny it is. Ducks in the background.
Yep.
Ducks in the background. We're eating homemade rhubarb cake.
Out of the garden.
Which is a historical, what is that? A historical recipe from your grandma, great-grandpa?
Mom's side of the family.
Mom's side of the family. 3 or 4 generations back, that kind of deal?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And the rhubarb that's in this is growing in our backyard, but it's a split piece of the rhubarb that was original to this recipe back in Illinois.
Okay,
so
it's even a historical rhubarb in the rhubarb cake.
Hi, Sully. Are you going to sniff the microphone? Our dog's here, too, because he wants some. And why are we recording while we're eating this amazing rhubarb cake that Mercedes made? Because we thought we'd mention the journey of having ducks and chickens.
Right. It all starts with ducks and chickens. Or some people say that it starts with just chickens, but...
Or did they...
And maybe I would say that it does start with just chickens.
It did start with chickens.
Because, okay, so our journey of...
She's laughing.
Chickens, because it started with chickens, was during the lockdowns in 2020.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we didn't have anything to do.
Right.
Mercedes was like, I feel like I want to have a new pet. And so she came up with this idea.
Was it really new pet? We were walking.
Bongars.
Yeah, she's yelling in the background.
We
were at
Bongars.
We were getting supplies for some other things we needed.
The ice rink or something like that.
And they had the hatchlings there, little chicks.
Yeah.
And we were actually prepared because we knew. Well, anyway, we knew it was coming, and so we were there talking, and we knew there was going to be a shutdown, and so both Madeline and Mercedes like, well, if there was ever a time to do it, and Sadie batted her eyes, and then what happened was, which was really funny, was then he said, well, I'm only going to do chickens if they're the cool ones, the Polish hens.
So we had to get Polish chickens, which if you've ever seen them, they look like Muppets. It's actually some of the most entertaining things
they got
ever.
like a headdress.
Yeah.
And they got an attitude.
And they have Jim Henson feathers on their head, which is hilarious. So they do. I mean, they look like Muppets. Yeah. They look at you the corner of their eye. They just walk around, prancing around. Yeah, it's awesome. So we started with that, and then we ended up at Tractor Supply, I think, one day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there was ducks, and we're like, oh my gosh, we should do that. So when you buy the hatchlings, they're tiny, so you raise them in your garage, that's fine. But then all of a sudden we're like, oh, we should do ducks. And at the time we were there in the Tractor Supply, the best part.
I know what you're talking about.
There was some lady, and it was a lady and her husband and a bunch of their kids. There was 2 or 3 or 4 kids, and they were like, oh, we should get ducks. She's like, I had ducks when I was a kid, and we will never get ducks.
They're a lot of work.
And I was like, what does she know about ducks that we don't know? And here we ended up getting ducks.
Yep.
Oh, man. They are cool as heck and absolutely spectacular. But, man, do they require a little more maintenance.
A lot.
A lot more.
Everything.
I think chickens, if you just threw chickens in your backyard and built a generic little chicken coop that you bought at Jack's or
as long as you put them away at night and secure them.
Yeah, I mean, you do some smart things about it, but it was hilarious because we decided, we're going to do this. And I started doing research on how to build a chicken coop. And I wasn't just going to build a chicken coop out of balsa wood like you see at all the, Tractor Supplies and basic stuff.
He's very specific and nothing in moderation, and he wanted to make it bulletproof because that's his statement.
We had tons of supplies at the shop.
Yep.
We had all kinds of lumber and stuff that had been paid for by other projects.
Shutdown was coming.
And we had all kinds of time. I had all the precision tools. So I built a chicken coop that was modeled off of the Carolina coops.
And he took the time, which was really cool, to teach Madeline and Mercedes how to use all these power tools.
Right.
And then our nephew, Connor, came over, and he got to learn how to use a drill.
Yep.
And stuff like that. So it became a very cool educational experience. Over a period of about 3 weeks, we built the whole thing.
I know. It was more than that. I feel like it was like 4 or 5 weeks.
Maybe.
It was a while because it took a while because we were still kind of designing as we were going.
By the time we were done, the birds needed the house. Let's just say.
Yeah, they were old enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were raising them in the garage. Mm-hmm. So they were trash in the garage, like feathers and duck poop all over everything. Constantly wet, constantly everything. It was like, oh my gosh, the garage is never going to recover. It recovered.
It's fine.
But then by that point, they were able to go outside and we had the place to put them in. But we built this crazy coop where we have a duck house with a openable lid, and we have the chicken coop or the chicken house is actually in a storage shed, and then we had this big old giant run. It was like 15 or 16 feet.
It's long.
You know, specifically divided in the middle so we can do chickens on one side and ducks on the other side. And then they can stay there. You know, if it gets really super hot or really super cold, they can just live in there and they'll be fine inside that big old run. And so it was a really cool space. But everything kind of starts with ducks and chicken, because then when you start going down the route of that, you start to learn all kinds of things about where the food's coming from and where this is coming from or where that's coming from and how much junk is in your food and how the food systems are this. And but it also makes you think about, you know, self-reliance, self-sustainability, and gardening things differently, and, you know, what you eat. And
I
starts
came
making
from
you change a whole lot of those kinds of things, which is cool.
And I came from my mom's side of the family as a farming family, and, you know, also the responsibility of now you can't travel unless you have someone who can care for them and pay attention to them, and the responsibility that it's different than a dog. A dog can go somewhere and stay the night. Birds cannot in the same way. They're territorial, they have a hierarchy, they have all the things, right? So it creates a challenge for anything that may or may not be scheduled for your life to travel and do things.
Yeah, and like with any pet, you know, pets limit you to what you can do for travel, but they limit you to what you can, you know, just disappear overnight, run night. You got to get home every night to make sure they're put away. So like if you just let them free range your yard, then, you know, you got to get them home before they just fall asleep and jump in a tree or on the roof, and then coons or foxes or whatever come along.
And we have had foxes and coons and cats and wild cats, and our neighbors have suffered the consequences of their birds not getting in before their automatic door closed. And
so it's a responsibility that you got to really take serious.
Yeah.
Unless you're just raising them for eggs and meat. I mean, that's the other thing. Is like for us, we ended up raising them for pets. So they really, every one of them got named, and then they all got, you know, we've been taking care of them. We've even rescued some that were injured from other places that never really took care of them. And really, I mean, if you really think about it too, like, that's cool that these ducks get to live in a pretty amazing kind of
a castle.
Empyrean of themselves, right? They get to live in a heaven of their own, because they're not going to worry about us going out there and chopping their heads off and turning them into dinner. But that's really what ducks and chickens are all about, in my opinion. But you know, that's the whole thing. You have to like
our household
balance it.
Had dealt with depression,
right?
And it was a pretty serious situation. And, you know, I had some issues with stuff. You did. Madeline and Mercedes had stuff. We actually had counseling during COVID shutdown and stuff like that we did. And the birds actually have been really good therapy for us. I mean, our dog has been amazing, and we had 2 dogs at the time. Amazing. But there's something about something that makes you have to go outside and have to do physical labor, feeding and switching water out and all that. And you have to do that twice daily and all of the things. And it makes your mental status change and reset when you get up in the morning, because you can't just get up and roll over and just be grumpy. Can't say you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, because you're gonna have to get out of bed. You're just gonna have to, and you're gonna have to be responsible, and you're gonna have to pay attention to how the food's going, and you're gonna have to pay attention to the nutrition and all the stuff. Dogs, you buy dog food, you feed them, you give them treats like he's begging right now. I wish you could see it really cutely for a piece of cake, but you know, the birds, they eat our food scraps and stuff like that, but you're having to pay more attention to them.
Yep, you got to change out their water. Ducks.
Yeah.
I would say anybody who buys a duck and doesn't just throw them in the bathtub and let them figure it out is actually doing a detriment to the duck, because at some point the duck's going to end up in some kind of water.
Yeah.
And we've heard of ducks, you know, drowning in the water because they weren't familiarized at a young age to be in the water.
Yeah.
And ducks float. It doesn't really matter how small or tiny they are. As soon as they pop out of an egg, they float. So it's hilarious.
Once they're dry, yeah.
Oh, I mean, they do. It was hilarious. In fact, when we went to Florida, we saw a baby duck. Cause a mom had raised a whole bunch of ducks, and then the mom and the dad and the other ducks had all kind of gotten older, and this duck somehow was younger, like a late hatch or something. Mm-hmm. And this little tiny baby thing was out in the lake with gators in the lake and eagles and hawks and everybody flying over. And one of the days that we were out there, I was standing in a pool cover, and I'm watching this bald eagle come flying down, comes flying down, and he's just like laser focused to just take out this little tiny duckling. I'm like, oh, I guess this is it. And right as he starts to put his legs out to grab on, the little duck just goes underwater.
Disappeared.
I was like, whoa. And so he flies on, all frustrated, couldn't figure it out, so he had to go land on a house and, you know, sit there and watch, and he has that eagle eye, all angry, you know. You know, that's how eagles look to me. I don't know, they just look mean and angry. Maybe that's why they were best bird for the United States. They're like, yeah, don't mess with us.
Yeah.
But sits up there, and crows are all messing with him, and that little baby duck had just popped up, you know, 15 feet away, and it was just like scurried away. So it was like, oh, baby ducks are pretty aggressive, and aggressive. Maybe they're pretty like bulletproof. They're gonna be able to take care of themselves. That's how they live. So birds in the wild know how to figure it out. So raised birds, if you don't put them in the pool or in a bathtub or in a bucket of water or something.
We started in a large bowl when they were tiny.
Yeah.
Because they do drown.
Yeah. And then don't let them walk on concrete, because then they get all kinds of weird bow legs, blown out knees, and all kinds of stuff.
Their bones bend.
But then I also learned too, like, it's nice to get the cute little yellow ducky, because it looks like a little rubber ducky. He's so cute. And they will, you know, quack at you and look at you cute and everything else. But that's a meat duck. That duck is raised to be a nice little white Peking duck. He'll get really super big, and when they're about 3 to 6 months old, that's when you kill them and eat them. Because after that, they start having all kinds of problems.
Yeah, because we've kept them past that point. They start having all kinds
of physical problems, like their knees blow out.
Mm-hmm.
They, you know, have all kinds of challenges. Like, we've tried raising them from eggs, and they, you know, don't make it because they end up getting some kind of like coop flu or something.
It's bad.
And literally nobody knows how to deal with it, because the entire industry of ducks and chickens has just been, well, you know, hey, if the chicken or the duck gets sick, you know, you cull it. You just cut its head off and you eat it, or you throw it away.
It's hard.
It's like, there's nobody knows how to deal with ducks and chicken stuff.
Yeah, it's hard when you have therapy ducks. They pay rent by paying their rent through laying eggs, right? Thanks, Madeline. And Sully cleaned that for us. You can put it back in the cupboard. I'm kidding. Just coming to get this one. But thanks, Sullivan. Yeah. So, but
yeah, but nobody knows how to take care of ducks.
Nobody knows. But we have therapy ducks, so you need to have a different approach to it. And because we're rescuing, like you mentioned, from various not so great situations and bringing them in, then you learn more about the fragility of these birds.
Yeah.
And the more wild birds, like we have Peking ducks, which are the white ducks, and then we have ruined ducks, which look like a mallard. They're way more robust.
They're more homestead type of ducks.
Yeah, the ruined ducks, like we had really bad bumblefoot on one before, and I had to do a treatment for that, which was not pleasant, but got it healed. The bird did not want to approach me anymore ever again for the longest time. Now she walks up to me. But it's taken 2 years for her to get over that. But, you know, the more wild looking the duck, the more healthy they are. And
yeah, and we have 2 runners as well. So
yeah,
I would say, look at, if you're going to get ducks and chickens, pretty much any chicken is going to be fine. I don't know that there's a chicken that's really terrible. We've even had like Italian chickens and stuff, and some of them, I mean, I think the worriest thing about chickens is really egg bound.
Yeah.
And then getting some kind of sick, like if they get heat stroke, they just quit drinking water and then die.
The heat stroke is so irritating.
Right.
Because you have a bottle of water right there and they're not going to drink it because it got too warm.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. So you need to make sure your chicken water is cold. So put it in like metal containers. We
put a block in it.
Rocks in there, or a concrete block, to make sure that it keeps it cooler and keeps it from getting hot. We even have like a big old giant black rubber bin that we put water in, and it gets warm. But as soon as you put a concrete block in there, for whatever reason, it keeps it cool. So that's really nice. But then with ducks, they end up with bumblefoot a lot. They end up with all kinds of early stage diseases, you know, like croup and cough and all kinds of weird
stuff. Sinus infections.
And a lot of that just becomes from they filter everything through their beak. Right? Yeah. So when you're watching ducks out in your backyard, they're going to be digging in the grass. They're going to be digging in every water thing. If there's just a little bit of water coming out of like gutters on your house, they're going to turn that into a big giant mud
12
pit.
12 inches deep.
Yeah. And dig a hole. Yeah, exactly. And then, but what they're doing is they're digging up all the dirt and filtering out all the food out of that dirt.
Yeah.
And then they need to have access to water to clean all that mud and muck out of their bill. So that's where these kind of respiratory things come from is because they're constantly filtering all the junk
They need
through their
clean
beak.
water to blow their nose on a regular basis. Is what
And it's
it is.
really funny because you'll hear them do that too. They'll like get in the water and hear them blowing their nose.
It's so funny.
Dunking their heads underwater and blowing bubbles and all kinds of stuff. It's really fun. So for us, we ended up building this big, giant, huge chicken duck mansion.
Yeah.
We also built a big 300-gallon pool that they could get into and have fun. And we don't change the water out enough probably because it turns into green muck slime. But I'll tell you what, that water on the grass and on the yard makes everything grow like crazy.
You don't throw things away. You just find new ways to repurpose it. And
recycle it all.
Recycling of the water there, our grass grows beautifully in the backyard where we get to shed that around. And
and the ducks and chickens run in free range in your yard.
We don't have any...
No fertilizer problems whatsoever. The yard is absolutely unbelievable. We didn't even mow this year. We're not even mowing this year. So the grass is longer, but they're keeping it at bay. And then you end up with rabbits. You end up with other kind of fun wildlife cruising around. Tons of squirrels, tons of rabbits. And then ducks and chickens. It's pretty fun. And we're just in a town, in Loveland, in a random house, in a neighborhood. And it's just pretty cool because all the plants and everything are growing crazy.
But we don't have grub issues and stuff like that in the grass anymore and stuff like that. So the birds are pretty amazing in making sure that, that's all cared for. But all in all, it all starts with the ducks and chickens, yes. But it's a great journey. It's been fun. And our daughter Mercedes started White Wings Bird Sanctuary with them because we've been trying to figure out what's the next step now that we have adult ladies as our daughters. And the dog's going to ring his bells because he's got his demands too. So we're trying to figure out the next steps of what that looks like now that our family's on this next stage of where we're going and doing different things. And so it's pretty exciting to see what God's going to do next. And you guys would get a huge laugh out of the things happening behind where you're looking right now, the camera, because Maddie and Sadie are trying to secretly tiptoe around managing the ducks, the chickens, the dog, and all of the things in the kitchen and keep it quiet. And I think they've done a pretty good job, but you are trying to be the star. And but on that note, I think so birds, we recommend them. They pay their rent. I recommend a dog who learns to ring bells every time he needs something because that's hilarious. And I encourage you to do the adventures of just life with animals.
Yeah.
And family.
I'll exaggerate a little bit on the whole it starts with ducks and chickens, or it starts with chickens, because starting with chickens is kind of a fun way to find freedom, liberty, and justice.
That's right.
It's also a really cool way to kind of find out the conservative nature of being independent in the United States and why the United States is an amazing place because we can have ducks and chickens. And then just following that trajectory and learning about things, you're going to end up going down a rabbit hole of becoming a conservative, becoming a libertarian, becoming somebody that really is about protecting the rights and the freedoms that we have in this country, and that's why it starts with ducks and chickens. To me, it's the best place to start, and it just really changes the way that you look at your environment, changes the way you eat, changes the way you think about your food, everything. And it's caused us to look at all kinds of stuff. I've gone carnivore this year. We've kind of started to drop tons of our sugar. We're changing the way we eat, changing the way that everything we live, and really thinking about stuff. And it even changes the way that we're looking at our business and the way that we're doing business and how we're living. So, if you want some really cool change in your life, it starts with chickens.
I agree.
Go to a Tractor Supply, go to a farm and ranch store and look at the ducks and chickens every spring and figure out how to get yourself into ducks and chickens in your backyard.
By no means are we advocating for you to go out and get a little thing and then not be responsible for it. There are far too many in rescues and humane societies and everything else of all kinds of creatures. You need to be a responsible human being and you need to do the research on what it's actually going to take. And if you're not willing to take and make yourself responsible, hold yourself accountable, and do what's right for the living creature that you're taking in, and that could be a fish as much as anything else, then don't do it. But if you're actually going to be responsible and you're looking for something that you're going to invest in and take the time and be committed to it, this is a good one to do.
Yeah.
But in all reality, if you're in an apartment and you want to commit to something, get a fish. Start with that. You got to keep the water clean and keep it fed. Can't keep that alive. I don't know how to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, shorter video than the last couple that we've done, but
yeah.
really kind of fun. I think it's a really great thing, and
Yeah.
it definitely teaches you responsibility, helps your kids learn responsibility.
And welcome to our real life chaos. This is the reality. Is we're sitting here looking calm while all the things are happening around us, and I love our daughters for the fact that they are about to bust a gut laughing and tipping toeing around trying to make things work, and I appreciate their support. So, but yeah. Fun topic.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us on this little short one. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully, you might consider taking on some ducks and chickens.
And if you want to figure out what rhubarb cake tastes like, message in, and we may share the recipe. Yeah. It's an old historic recipe. Right. Can you find rhubarb? Rhubarb's in stores. Grocery stores, but boy, you have to look for spoiled. Some really, maybe go to a farmer's market and find some great really rhubarb. Mm-hmm. Maybe they've got some 140-year-old rhubarb like we do in our backyard. You never know. Yeah. Yeah, it makes you ask questions, and then maybe you'll seek out things, and you'll learn something about history of your area. That's right. Cool. Be awesome. And then you can make this cake. So yeah, if you like rhubarb cake or you've never heard of it, ask us. We'll share it. Yeah. Right on. All right. See you guys on the next one. God bless.